What's up, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude, that's your leading the charge. Today I have with me Randy Hardman to talk some Bills schedule news. Randy, welcome, man. Glad to have you back on the show. Now on my own channel for the first time since the Buffalo Rumblings days. Thank you so much for joining, and the door's always wide open for you, man.
Appreciate it. Glad to be back.
Awesome. So the idea today is to talk about the Bills' schedule finally revealed, right? We knew the opponents, but we we didn't know the order of the games, right? And now with the order, we can kind of envision a little bit what to expect from those games. Randy, let me ask you one thing. Are you a big fan of this schedule release week? Do you wait it anxiously as well, or not so much? You are one of those guys that okay, we already know the opponents and the order doesn't matter that much. How do you see this week, and how anxiously you wait for this release and all of that?
I mean, I think it's fun to discuss and conjecture around the order and the way it's all laid out. I mean, you know, ultimately it's like the fourth or fifth event of the off season in priorities
Hmm.
for me. But I mean, yeah, it's fun to talk about who and when and where, as opposed to well, we know who's home and away, but at what point and how it lays out. Where's the spot in our schedule where we could potentially make a run.
Hmm.
If you're one of the people that thinks we're going to have like a down year, well, where are the opportunities to make up some ground, so to speak.
Hmm.
So it's still fun to, and again, it's just a thought exercise about the upcoming season. Ultimately, the games are played and the results speak for themselves. So, you know, that's what it is.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. And there are a lot of people who are like, oh, we don't know if the team will be healthy at some point of the season, or if player X or player Y will be ready or will be healthy or not
Yeah.
anymore.
I mean,
But the same can be said about anything in football, right? It,
yeah,
it changes quarter to quarter, game
there
for game, right?
there's so many variables when it comes to, a NFL season. So, and what I always find funny is when like people will go back to these takes, at the end of the season, be like, "You said that they were going to be 13-3 and they were 12-5." And you're like, "Yeah, well, fucking things happen,
Yeah.
injuries happen. Like, what do you? I'm not Nostradamus here. I'm not some sort of future seer. I'm just taking my best educated guess based on the information that I have in front of me and the way that I view it. So yeah, I think the old takes exposed that people try and do on schedule predictions is laughably hilarious.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. Bills Mafia, feel free to send questions or your opinions on the schedule, even your ideas of records for the Bills at the end of the year on the chat, and also interact there. We'll be giving it a look and talking to you via chat. And so let me throw the schedule on the screen, and so we can talk a little bit about it, right? And starting from Arizona in week one, right, Randy? And obviously there are no gimmies in an NFL season. And this Arizona Cardinals team was a playoff team 2 seasons ago. They still have a quarterback that has potential and has franchise material potential. Maybe some people believe more in him. Some people maybe already gave up, but former first overall pick, and now with a special talent joining him in Marvin Harrison Jr. Some of the Bills Mafia here in Brazil are poking fun at me, Randy, because they said that I prayed so hard to see Marvin Harrison Jr. playing in Buffalo in week one. that unfortunately it
Yeah,
happened,
you
not
got
the
you
way
got
I
what you
want.
wanted.
Yeah, not exactly, but still. So again, there is no gimmies, and it's a dangerous, talented team, but it's a team in a process of kind of rebuilding, new coach, new situation. We don't even know for sure what to expect from the Cardinals. With all that said, I don't think we could ask for much better than that in week one playing Buffalo, Randy. Do you see it like this, or are you too worried about this game? How do you see this first matchup, the Bills' chance of getting starting the season on the right foot and getting a double in week one?
Well, I mean, I look at it like this. What happened the last time we played Arizona? It hasn't been, I mean, it's been a few years, but it hasn't been that far to where they're, going
Yeah.
to be drastically different. So it was a close game that we should have won, but we ended up losing, at the last second. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that while we have different weapons now, we've lost the big one from that game that helped keep us in it. So is it one of the better scenarios? Yes. Is it possibly a trap game? Absolutely. Am I concerned about it? A little, but not a lot. I would have preferred Tennessee here,
Mhm.
because I do think that Murray can hurt you, and much like the way when the play breaks down a little bit for Josh, he hurts you in a different way, but Murray can still hurt you, and if it comes at the wrong point in the game, especially at the end, they can pull out a win as we've seen before. So, I would have preferred Tennessee here, but I think for all things considered, it's probably one of the better possible opponents to have week one. Hopefully, it's a nice big blowout. Everybody can have a relaxing day, but you never know. After this week one, which we'll get into, is where it gets fun and interesting.
Yeah, man. Then the a tough stretch starts, a stretch that a lot of people got worried about, and starting in Miami, a primetime game, and and then a lot of tough opponents in the Jaguars has been a difficult opponent for us recently, especially, and then the Ravens and the Texans away from home, three away games, right? The Jets, another primetime game, so a really tough stretch, and I don't know, man, about you, but I'm uh really confident in this
Well,
Bills team.
let's
This Yeah, go on.
yeah, confident definitely. So let's talk about this 3 game road stretch, okay?
Hmm.
So first of all, we got 2 trips from Buffalo to the coast in Jersey and Baltimore. So while those are road games, those are probably some of the easier road games as far as travel distance and schedule and everything that we're going to come across. So that right there is advantageous for us versus like cross country trips or
Yeah,
multiple weeks on the West Coast where you go out and you play the Seahawks first and then you go down and play the Rams or the Cardinals or something like that. Like, we're going to the Jets and then coming back. We're going to Baltimore and then coming back. And like one of those, I think there's like a long week sandwiched in there or something like that. So I mean, you know, I'm confident, as far as this 3 game road stretch goes. Let me pull that back up again. Yeah, the Dolphins and then the Jags and the Ravens. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that. Texans and then Jets. Yeah, I'm fine with this whole stretch. Really, after the Cardinals game is when I think it's the most important time in the season because up until you get to KC, with the
mhm.
Dolphins, Jags, Texans, Ravens, Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins again, and Colts, there is a legitimate opportunity there to run that table or come out of that with one, maybe 2 losses and set yourself up in the second half of the season after the Chiefs game to really set the pace for the rest of the conference. If they falter in the first half of the season, look out because it's going to get tough like right after the bye. And if they can't pick themselves back up after the bye, then we're going to be in trouble the last 3 weeks because we're going to be fighting for our lives. I don't think that's going to be the case. Um, I really like the way the schedule plays out. I think we're going to pad it early, especially after that Ravens game. The Ravens game will be a toss up. That'll be a 50-50, but I think we'll win it. But then after that, the Texans are going to have to prove it to me. I got
Yeah,
wins over the Texans, Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins again, and the Colts going into the Chiefs game. So, I'm happy with the way that this thing laid out.
yeah, me too, man, me too. And I was just gonna tell you about that, about how confident I am in this team, because some people like to tell that, okay, these Bills, they've been awesome late in the years, just one loss since November in the last 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
And but that's a new version of the Buffalo Bills, right? We gotta remember, with all the turnover in this roster, and I see this team not 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 in a quality standpoint, but in a standpoint of the retooling. Uh, I see it closer to the initial McDermott version of the Bills, before Josh was drafted, and the team that break the drought. Not in quality or potential, but in the meaning that with the turnover on both sides of the field, you have a group of professionals coming in, and buying on McDermott has to sell to them for the first time, and really believing in what the coach brings them, and buying on, and doing their best to play perfectly, to not make mistakes. We know that when players are with some coaches for a longer period, some people start to maybe, oh, I don't buy this shit anymore, or oh, I
Right.
don't believe you, I don't believe in you anymore like I believed in the beginning, things like that. And with all this turnover, man, I see a possibility of this team, a real possibility of this team surprising a lot of people, especially national media, because you are confident in this team. I am confident in this team, but we follow them on daily basis, right? National media is totally uh, talking about the lost talent, the window closed, and things like that. I feel like they're gonna be surprised because I expect McDermott and his coaching staff to have this team really prepared from the get go, and the professionals themselves, the players, um, not being too comfortable, like the previous versions of the team. Oh, we are contenders. We are coming from a playoff loss, but we played awesome, and we're gonna be the divisional champions. We're gonna to the playoffs. So, and get surprised sometimes early on the seasons. So I
Yeah.
expect this team to get going fast, playing uh, good football from the get go, not making too many bad mistakes as we saw last year in the first stretch where we struggled with 12 men on the field, uh, bad complementary playing during the first stretch. I feel like they're gonna be more ready from the beginning, but at the same time, I don't see this team being a blowout machine, blowing people out. They're gonna be in more close games, and they will need to win those close games, and I feel they will be able to, but at the same time, they will give opportunity for other teams to beat them. And so I'm not so confident they can go in a run again, late in the year if they need to win 5, 6 consecutive games. I'm not that confident this team has this star potential right now, but I'm more confident they will start faster this season, and they will be ready for this stretch, and they can have a good first half of the year, setting them up to a playoff spot, and being in position to win the division as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree and disagree in some aspects. So
Okay.
I agree that they're definitely in a position to win the division. That I think they're gonna win a lot of games. I disagree in the fact that I think that they are a team that can blow people out, and they are
Okay.
a team that can score quickly. I think the MO for them is going to be a little bit more ball control and methodical drives, but it's not going to um, take away the fastball, so to speak. And I know that that's been talked about a lot over the years. I mean, if this team, so let me kind of rewind a second. You were talking about the different ways they've ended seasons. If this
Hmm.
team hasn't learned by now, led by the quarterback, led by this head coach, who are the two constants, and Deion Dawkins also, who are the constants on this team over this entire regime, if they
Hmm.
haven't learned that every game is important and that they can be beat in a variety of different ways, then they never will.
Yeah,
Because they've
true.
lost in just about every possible fashion that you can imagine in games that matter, games that they should win, playoff games. I mean, if it could happen, it's happened. You know, so there shouldn't be any. And I've said this for 2 years now, and I'll say it again this year. There shouldn't be any trap games. There shouldn't be any surprise or learning losses or anything like that. They should come in understanding the position that they're in and be laser focused and ready to go. Nobody should be catching them by surprise. They're going to get everyone's best shot. I mean, that's the simple fact of the matter. It's the way that it's been. So I do think that they could be more explosive than imagined. It's just it's going to look different because the offenses are going to flow through the running game and the tight end versus through Diggs. You know,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when I say maybe this team won't be in position to blow out people at every single week, I mean in the sense of, in my opinion, there are two possibilities. The possibility that I believe that this team it's gonna work. I'm really anxious to see this new pass catching group work, this new offense working under Brady and with Josh not really worried about feeding Diggs, but doing the right plays, the right reads, feeding whoever they feel is getting open on every single drive. And to see Kincaid take the next step, to see Shakir get more opportunities because he made the most of his opportunities last season. He couldn't have done any better than what he's done. And then Coleman, then Samuel back with Brady. So there are so many possibilities, right? And I feel like you gotta be very, very unlucky to not see anybody taking advantage of all those opportunities and stepping up and establishing themselves as
yeah,
new stars in this offense. New Pro Bowl players, new possible All Pro guys. Just like we saw with Bernard last season, Bernard took the most of that opportunity and put up a kind of an All Pro season. If you look at the numbers,
yeah,
right? So I expect that to happen with this offense. And if it happens, definitely they will be able to play really solid football and blow out people for sure. Now, for people who are worried that we don't have Diggs anymore, we don't have Poyer, we don't have Micah Hyde in his prime, we don't have Tre'Davious White, we lost too much talent, and they are worried that maybe the new guys won't be able to translate in their new roles and to step up to get better to become the new stars. Maybe even if it happens, I feel like this team still is very capable of competing, playing on their floor level, because we have Josh and we have a good defensive scheme, especially for regular season, when you are facing in general all kind of offenses and not just Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow like in the playoffs. And they are proven that they can be a top-notch defense on regular season. So this team is gonna compete, no matter if you like me and like you believe those guys will step up and this team will surprise a lot of people, or if you are pessimistic that we lost too much talent and those guys ain't it, and we don't have that potential anymore.
sure. And I'll bring some up here in just a moment. And I wanted to kind of for the people that are a little bit worried about, you know, our schedule and the way that it's played out. I want you to understand that in terms of our opponents in the first half of the schedule up until the bye week, we play a grand total of, let me see here, one, two, three, four teams. Four teams that ranked in the top half of the league in total defense in the first 11 weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other teams that we play are the Cardinals 31st, Dolphins 22, Jags 17, and then you have the Ravens, Titans, and Jets who were all in the top 15. Titans were 16, but then Seahawks were 25, Miami was 22, and the Colts were 28. So while I understand the trepidation about the strength of schedule, which I think we're at 10th overall, um, the total defenses that we're playing are not fantastic the first half. And really the second half either, but it gets a little bit better on the second half. There's what
Mm-hmm.
there's one, two, three teams out of the final six that have top 15 defenses. You know, um,
Yeah.
so and then if you want to go into looking like DVOA or whatever, like it looks a little bit better from the opponent standpoint, but I mean overall, it's not like our offense is going to be facing a bunch of juggernauts the entire season, much less the first half. It's just, and I know that rankings based on last season or our last season that things can change. They've added pieces. I get all that, but still, you know, it's I don't
Yeah.
think it's as bad as what a lot of people may believe.
True. True. How many games do you have the Bills winning here in your projections in these first 11 weeks before the bye week?
Let's see. So let me pull that back up. In the first 11,
Yeah.
so in order, I've got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. I got 9 and 2 going into the bye.
Yeah, I'm around this number as well. I don't see them losing more than 3 games here. I have a 3 max here,
Yep.
and then the bye week, in a good week, right? Week
Bye week
12
comes at a
bye
great
week.
time. Great time.
Love it, love it. One of the things that I love the most in this schedule is this bye week at week 12. We'll have
Yep.
11 stretch. You can recover a little bit, and then you start with some. You have some of those trips, just like you said, a trip to Los Angeles here in week 14. So
Yep.
some long trips. So how about this stretch after the bye week then, uh,
Oh,
Randy?
I see.
We
Five
start
and
with
it's 5-1, 4-2 at worst.
yeah,
I see 2 wins against the Patriots, more than likely a win against the Jets. I think we beat the Niners coming off of the bye, and then it's a split between the Rams and the Lions. One of those two will probably get us, either
hmm
either Detroit or LA, but we'll win the other one.
yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so I'm think, I mean, and in the first half, I mean, if you're looking at it, barring upsets, I say in the first half you got a coin flip against the Ravens and probably a coin flip against the Texans because CJ Stroud turned out to be the real deal, and
Yeah,
now they've got Diggs and a couple other big weapons, so they could give us problems. I think we'll beat Seattle. I think we'll beat the Dolphins twice. I think we'll beat the Jets. And the Colts I think will be a tough game. They're definitely a team on the rise, but I feel like we're going in. We should be the favorites and we should get them. And Kansas City in the regular season, we've pretty much owned them. So I'm feeling good about the front half. I feel like 7-5 at worst coming out of that, or 7-4, or 6-5 coming out of that front half of games is like the worst case scenario.
hmm hmm
But then being able to turn it on in the back half and only lose out like I think 13-4, 14-3 is really, really realistic. I think uh, what 11-6 is probably the worst case scenario.
yeah. I totally agree, man. And a lot of people have the Bills losing to the Lions or because
I mean,
they've
it's
been
maybe. I mean, the
even
Lions are a good team. I'm
yeah
not
the
going to completely
Lions.
discount them.
But I wouldn't. I totally agree with you. I think it's totally possible that the Rams beat us and we beat the Lions. Like maybe
Yeah,
coming
I mean,
from a win against the 49ers, and you need to travel all around the country to face Los Angeles in LA,
yeah.
right?
I mean, let me put it this way, okay? Of all the games on our schedule, how many do you think that we should be the underdog in? And to me, it should either be a push or a -1 against, or a +1, sorry, a +1 against Baltimore, San Francisco, Kansas City, and that's it. Maybe Detroit.
Mm.
Maybe Detroit. So, I mean, you're talking about on a 18-week, 17-game schedule that we should either be a push or a -1 or a +1 against four games on that schedule. Let's be realistic about where this team is. It's not like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. We're not going to be struggling for relevancy. We're still in contention to be one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it's natural for some people, especially if national media talking too much about the Bills not being a contender anymore, maybe in AFC or the window closing. A lot of Bills fans have gotten afraid, but I can see
Well,
it. Definitely can see it.
I mean, that's a lot of that is buying into, oh, we've lost so much. Well, what exactly did we actually lose? We lost a Micah Hyde who hasn't gotten a bite in free agency, and it's either talking about retiring or he'll play with Buffalo, and that's it. You got an aging Jordan Foyer who couldn't close an angle, and was a liability in many ways, for us the last 2 seasons, much less
Yeah,
last season. You got Tre'Davious White, God love him, great guy, coming off another major knee injury. I
hasn't
mean,
been on the field when it mattered the
yeah,
most, right?
yeah. It's
Hasn't
not
been.
like
We
we're
hasn't counted on him.
it's not like we're losing A1 line one, starters here. We're losing guys that were either on their way out or coming back from some sort of major injury, or guys that were ineffective. Like somebody noted Tim Settle as one of our key losses. And it's like, what do you
Yeah.
it, it's one of those things where you have to take, when people say, oh, they've lost so much, you're like, okay, let's contextualize that statement. And when
Yeah.
you really look into it, it's a lot in terms of games played and experience and like leadership. But as far as like on-field effectiveness, I don't think it's going to be as impactful as people, as the critics would lead you to believe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips has been a penalty machine recently. I love the guy
Yeah,
maybe 3, 4 years ago, but
yeah. The idea of
recently,
Jordan Phillips 4 years ago is way better than the reality of Jordan Phillips today.
true, true. And the same can be said at some extent for about Trey, about Poyer, Hyde, everybody there, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
and look, last season or last season or last game against the Chiefs, we had a it was a Swiss cheese defense with Klein playing there, and we still were competitive against the Super Bowl champions without
Sure.
right. And then we had Diggs. Yes, we had Diggs dropping the most important pass of the year. Like maybe if he had done his superstar, what a superstar is supposed to do there, we wouldn't be talking about the situation right now. So all that the Bills lost, man, they really haven't showed up when it mattered the most, and we still were totally competitive against the Chiefs, the Super Bowl champions. And what made us competitive against us, we still have them. We still have Josh. We still have Brady with a game plan that I loved against the Chiefs. I don't know about you. A lot of people didn't like it, but I love to see our offense being able to pound the rock against the Chiefs in that game, and they not
Sure.
having an answer, and then they needing to adapt in the second half, and then there were questions about, he should have adapted quicker and things like that. But I loved what he's done there,
Yeah.
and
And I think that, when it comes to, Kansas City and getting by the big bad monster, I mean, I think when you talk about Kansas City, you have to be flexible and versatile enough to be able to grind the game down to where you're eliminating possessions, but then also be able to flip the switch and score in a heartbeat and play the track meet game, because that's
Mhm.
what they can do. The
Yeah,
last two, since they lost Tyreek Hill, they have consistently relied on Travis Kelsey getting first downs, getting plus first downs, complementary run game, and then touchdowns. That's what they do. They march down the field and they shorten the game with these longer drives, and then Pat Mahomes throws a 5 or 10 yard pass for a touchdown, and that's it.
yeah,
So you know for us to be able to keep up with that, we need to be able to do the same thing. We basically need to mirror, or have the ability to mirror, what they do. And if you look at what we have on offense with Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and the guys that we've added, and James Cook in the running game, we're set up to do exactly that. We're going to lean on Dalton Kincaid in the run game to help extend drives out, shorten the game from a time clock perspective. But then, if need be, when you need a quick strike, we got to have that in our back pocket. That's keeping your fastball around. That's the old Terminator from Major League, Rick Vaughn, being able to have that in his back pocket to pull out at the bottom of the ninth.
mhm.
That's what we got to have, and that's what we got to be confident that we have. Um, and I think that with the guys that we got, we can do it.
Yeah, man, and a lot of talk about our wide receiver group and losing Diggs. And now the last piece, it seems, has been added. A lot of people were expecting a big trade for a number one guy, and I really couldn't see it coming, or at least not until this offense proves on the field that they can't work without the number one. And I don't think it will happen. But the final piece has been added with Marcus Valdez Scantling, the field stretcher that maybe was missing, or we had KJ Hamler, but Hamler obviously coming from injuries is just a guy to compete. He might be able to beat Valdez Scantling, who knows? But it's a long shot. So the Bills built a room with all kind of targets for Josh, something he hasn't had in a long time, right? Or maybe ever, because in the beginning he had Kelvin Benjamin, he had Holmes, he had some big targets, even Zay Jones, but those guys weren't really the best guys at what they were supposed to do, right? The same could be said about Duke Williams, who in Josh's first playoff game, he threw the ball 10 times to Duke Williams. He was trying to rely on the guy to be that possession guy, that jump ball guy. He even put one right on the money for him to score a touchdown. Unfortunately, he dropped against the Texans. And now it seems he finally will have that variety of targets at his disposal, right? How excited are you to see this group working together under Brady and add a run game with Cook and the offensive line being physical as we've seen since last season, since Brady took over, and all those guys. A lot of people talk about a basketball team, right? Built like a basketball team with a power forward, with a shooting guard, all kind of roles in this pass catching group. What can you tell to people who aren't really confident in this recipe?
Well, I think you have a lot of pieces that, well, if you look at the names and you're like, oh, they don't have any big names, that's fair, right? But if you look at the skill sets of the guys they have brought in, so you have Coleman, who obviously offers a different skill set from Shakir and Curtis Samuel, right?
Mhm.
So already you have a diversity of ability to go along with Kincaid and Knox. And then you have like your other guys like the MVS, downfield field stretcher, Mac Hollins, special teams player, Claypool, big question mark, probably not going to be on the team, past the midway point of the season, much less training camp, if that. So that's big question mark. But really, when you're talking about the top guys,
Mhm.
you're talking about Shakir, Coleman, um, MVS, and Kincaid and Knox and Samuel. And those are going to be like your top group, along with James Cook and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson for running back. So
Mhm.
I mean, I think while it's somewhat of a no-name group, like the no-name defense is kind of a no-name offense, but
Yeah.
it's also very reminiscent of the original Brady regime in New England, where it was like they had a tight end or a Foria, or they had Vrabel on tight end, stuff like that, and like Troy Brown and Deion Branch. Like none of those guys were like name guys, like
Mhm.
they were NFL players, but they weren't like superstars.
Yeah.
But they worked within the structure of the scheme well enough to the point where it allowed them to win a lot of games, and they won a couple titles, and started that whole New England dynasty. And I think that that's more of the type of skill group that we have. We don't have like an A1 alpha guy, unless you want to count Kincaid. That's fine if you want to make that leap. But I feel overall we have a lot of B's and B pluses that, combined with our A plus quarterback, could be an A offense. You
Mhm.
know, but I
Mhm.
don't. It's not like we're San Francisco, for example, where they got A weapons and like a C plus quarterback or a B minus quarterback, and it makes for an A offense. We're kind of the opposite, or not the opposite, but we're kind of inverse or reversed, or whatever term you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and especially it's a no-name offense right now. Maybe by the end of the season, we are talking about Shakir on the Pro Bowl season. Just like you said, Kincaid establishing himself as one of the top-notch tight ends in the game. So the opportunity will be there, and Josh Allen will be throwing them the ball. What Shakir did last season, being ranked first in catch percentage and a lot of other metrics, if he can keep it up with the bigger role now, he's going to establish himself as a great wide receiver, right? And after the jump
Yeah,
he did last season, I can't doubt him anymore, you know?
yeah, and part of that comes with lower expectations.
Mhm.
Last year he wasn't getting much attention. He's going to get some more attention now, but I mean, I think the one of the good things about our offense is that with Diggs, like people knew they had to double Diggs, right? A lot of
Mhm.
times, or except when a lot of the man that we played, people didn't. I think people didn't double. I can't remember where I saw that. Probably from Cover One somewhere. But either way, I think this offense is set up to be one of those ones where like If you choose a double one, you're taking attention away from somebody else, and that's where the opening is going to come. Like it's going to be that classic case of, pick your poison. Who are you going to double and leave the other one open? Because any one of those pieces, Samuel, and especially like Coleman's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities. But any of the guys that we have, if you choose to leave them one-on-one, they can win. You know, um, and that's what I look at. I look at, is anybody like a liability out there? And I don't see any liabilities out there one-on-one. You know, I think if they choose to, like, if the offense flows through Kincaid as much as everyone expects it to, and people try and like bracket and double Kincaid, it's going to leave somebody else open. Josh just has to find them. A lot of the success this year is going to be predicated on Josh Allen being able to take a wider view. I don't know. I don't know if you ever watched The Wire, but there's a scene in The Wire where he's telling one of the detectives is telling a newer detective about like how to survey a crime scene, and he says you got to have soft eyes. And he explains that hard eyes is just looking at one thing and trying to build a picture from there, but soft eyes, you kind of take a visual step back, look at the whole picture, and figure it out. Figure it out from there, and that really helps you determine what happened. Josh is going to need to have soft eyes the entire season. He can't necessarily predetermine or lock in. Like he's going to have to be open-minded and flexible enough to be able to really see the whole thing. If he does that, it's going to be huge because we are going to be able to essentially pick apart any defense at will if he can do that. If he can't, it's going to be a lot of the same issues as far as forced turnovers, arm punts and things like that. But if he can put that part of his game together with the weapons that we have, it's going to be hard for somebody to get on top of us and stay there.
100%. And just like you said, if people start to give too much attention to Kinky, that's what they want when they drafted Coleman, for example. All they want is Coleman with some one-on-one opportunities against smaller defensive backs, so he can take advantage of his size, jumping ability, and all, and start to make people pay for that. So they will start to maybe change their attention to Coleman, and then you have Shakir, you have Samuel, you have Kincaid himself, you have even Dawson Knox, who a lot of people has written off, but he's still a guy that can contribute, especially as a tight end too. So the offense is very diverse, and they can hurt you in so many ways that I'm really excited to see it. And I have a comment here, Randy, from Stephen Angel, and it's a very interesting one and a valid one. Hi guys, it seems to me every year you think the Bills are better, but the truth is that this is never reflected on the field. I really can't agree with Steve's comment here because if we look at the 13 seconds loss, in my opinion, it seems that's where our offense was at its most explosive version since Josh has been there and scoring at the will, and they had the perfect game against the Patriots, and then after against the Chiefs they started running the ball, trying some play action, and after the halftime when they threw a play action bomb to Gabe Davis, they started to let Josh go and throw and air it all, and they were really explosive, right? But that offense couldn't really run the ball well or efficiently as we expected. And then in the next few seasons, we could see an improvement in offensive line, run game getting better. And last season,
I mean, we finished the season with like 9 straight wins before the playoffs, and we're the number 2 seed. So, I mean, I don't really see how they didn't improve from the year before. I mean, it may have looked different. It may not have looked the way that you wanted. It may have been a rockier road than you may have wanted on the first half, but the results do speak for themselves. In the second half of the season, we were absolutely on fire, and we went in as the number 2 seed with home field advantage throughout the playoffs until, unless we face the Ravens. So to say that it hasn't added up on the field, I don't think it's accurate.
Yeah, I agree. And Stitch continues, I can't see any other reason for this other than our coaching staff front office. They are disappointing. For me, they are already working overtime. I get it. I get it that sometimes we get frustrated. I get frustrated Randy gets frustrated. We question McDermott last
Sure.
season when he deserved to be questioned, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And
if you want to question the coach, that's totally fair game. Yeah.
yeah, like, oh, Sean McDermott hasn't been able to outcoach Andy Reid in the playoffs. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but we can't close our eyes, for example, for the fact that the Bills were playing like last game with
But that's
a backup
also,
defense.
I mean, to say that he can't outcoach Andy Reid in the playoffs, I mean, let's contextualize that statement. I mean, even with the bad defensive call on the 13-second game, right? How much of that loss do you think is on McDermott for the play call, if you believe he was in charge of the play call, or Frazier,
Mhm,
whoever?
mhm.
But really, when you look at it, it's it comes down to the players. Okay. I mean, Jordan Poyer couldn't close that angle 5 years ago, much less last year.
Yeah,
It's just not a play that he can make. So is a big part of the reason why he hasn't been able to beat Andy Reid in the playoffs, the personnel as well? Yeah. So maybe some of this turnover that everyone's so worried about is actually a good thing. Getting Mike Edwards instead of, an aging, injured Micah Hyde, probably a good thing. Getting Cole Bishop and, whoever, what other person they have in there, that has fresher legs, even though they might be missing something as far as a veteran eye for coverages, but they'll make up for it in different areas. I mean, that's going to be better than having Poyer out there on half a leg trying to close an angle on a Tyreek Hill or on somebody else. I mean, it's just, you got to take it for what it is, and look at the whole picture. It's not just about McDermott calling plays. It's about the guys on the field trying to execute. And we haven't been able to execute against this team because we've been in a deficit in specific areas where they have exploited us. Last year it was AJ Klein. Before that it was Poyer. I
mhm.
mean, it's just the way that the team has been constructed. Part of that goes on Bean, part of it goes on McDermott, and part of it goes on the players. It's not all one or the other.
True, totally true. And Stitch finished. We are missing Josh Allen's prime. Nothing matters except Super Bowl. And here, man, I really we can't
I mean,
ignore.
yes
We
and
are
no.
Yeah, we can't ignore. We are facing Andy Reid. We are facing Patrick Mahomes also in his prime, right? And we've been close. And I've been here defending Josh a lot, telling how much I believe Josh even outplayed Mahomes on some of those games. And unfortunately, didn't have the same. He didn't have his kicker hitting the field goal to tie the game, for example, late, or he didn't have a better play calling on defense like the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs has done for them. So I can understand the frustration with McDermott and with Bean, but with everything, man, I think there is a balance. I think McDermott is a really good coach. I like his schemes. I like the way he carries himself and his team, the process and all. I like it. I like him to see him developing quicker. Like for now, they hired a former official to help with the challenges. Awesome, because he's been awful at that. So he's trying to get better. He's making the moves with the coaching staff. He's making the moves with the players. Right? It would be normal to see McDermott fully attached to Poyer to hide until the end. Trey Davis White. Those were his guys. Those were the guys that had his back last season when the bad article came out. So it
Yeah.
would be normal to see him sticking with the guys even past their primes. But no, he's changing the coordinators, he's changing the coaching staff, the players. So I see development for McDermott, even if it's slower than what I'd like to see. And with Bean, for some people, Bean can do no wrong. And for other people, Bean is awful. I think Bean is a smart guy. He's a good general manager. He makes some mistakes. Kyrie not working out so far has been a big miss. It would be awesome to have Kyrie becoming what he was expected to be, a physical, fast cornerback that could man people up, press coverage, and things like that. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked so far, but it can still work, man. And I think we are right there. Unfortunately, last season, losing Bernard was like the kill shot for that defense against the Chiefs. It was so tough after losing him in the middle of the field. And we got to expect the team to be able to get there in the playoffs healthier and the week 12 bye now might help with it. So we gotta get a little bit lucky as well. Fortunately, we have Josh Allen. I feel like he's done enough to win it all, and hopefully he can have some help around himself and people making plays for him when it matters the most. Unfortunately, last season it didn't happen with Diggs, but for example, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, so maligned for drops and things like that, he made huge plays for Mahomes in 3 consecutive games against us, against the Ravens, against and in the Super Bowl again. So you gotta make the plays when it matters the most, right, Randy?
Absolutely.
All right, man. So uh, to close it out, so around 13 and 4, 14 and 3 is your guesses here for the schedule.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's definitely where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see them losing. Just like you said, worst case scenario, 6 games, 6 losses. A worst case scenario, if obviously everybody, most of the most important players can stay healthy. I agree. I think it's totally possible to go 13 and 4, 12 and 5. I feel like they will be prepared for the season. I feel like this renewed team um, won't sleep on themselves so much and allow some of those surprise losses to happen. I feel like they will be very ready, very prepared for the season, and the Bills will continue to contend and they gotta get to the playoffs healthier as possible so they can
That
give Kansas City and everybody else their best shot. I feel like they are at their best. They are one of the top teams in the league still, Randy.
Yeah, I mean, health and when you're healthy are just as important as X's and O's. I mean, we've seen that year over year. The healthiest teams that are playing the best at the end of the season usually end up doing very well. Um, it just so happens we were one of them up until the last game or so, and then that last part fell off. We weren't healthy, and all of a sudden, you know, the juggernaut goes down. Goliath gets slain by David, and we're going home early. So yeah, staying healthy is very, very, very important. And hopefully this year, that's us.
Yeah, true. And for the people worried about the loss of experience, we lose some experience, but we get some fresh legs to run. And after all, you gotta be able to run in this game, run, hit, and cover ground. So, and especially wide receiver group, people worried. Man, last season I was begging for a DeAndre Hopkins trade or signing at this point, because I was like, man, if we lose Diggs, we don't have much. And now I feel way better about the depth and all the players that are there, even the guys that we are not counting on, like Claypool, Hamler, Shorter. Those guys can
Yeah.
surprise, right? They
I
can
mean, look,
surprise some people.
if you get anything out of those guys, it's an absolute bonus.
Yeah,
Because expectation, I'm just letting everybody know, expectation for them should be zero. It
true.
should be absolute zero. If you go into, if they, first of all, if they even make the team
Yeah,
coming out of training camp in preseason, for the regular season, if they're on the squad, the expectation should be special teams contributor, if that. Otherwise, they're going to be game day inactives, practice squad, whatever. Um, so I think setting expectations is important too. I mean, I know that we like to talk about it as conjecture and it makes for good conversations, but I don't expect to get anything from Chase Claypool, from KJ Hamler, from Andy Isabella, from Tyrell Shavers, as much as Bean has been talking him up,
yeah,
so far. Like I don't expect anything out of those guys, um, and that just helps me, basically set my expectations for the season. Like, okay, the guys that I'm counting on are the top guys. I'm not counting on the Brandon Rileys of the world to set the world, to set the
yeah,
league on fire.
yeah. David
You know,
Seals, Derrick Rogers,
yeah,
those guys.
I fell for
Luke
Sills a few
Williams.
years back. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
That's not happening again.
awesome. Randy, thank you so much, man, for joining me today. I had a blast again, obviously, and doors always wide open, so you can join me here on the show. You're always welcome, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, man. No problem.
Bills Mafia, thank you so much. I'll be back next Sunday with the Leading the Charge in Portuguese.
Oh,
Yeah. Randy, talk
real
about
real
your
quick.
new gig.
So recently I agreed to be part of the Do Champions Media Network. Do Champions just started up. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or X, you know, for
Yeah,
Twitter. We're on all the major platforms. Um, some of the other members you might recognize, like Ryan Buffalo, Student Body Right, Matt Daggert, and several other people. You can find us all on X. We'll be providing content analysis for all things Bills related all throughout the season and the off season. So come check us out. It's Do Champions, DUE Champions. And yeah, we're happy to be here, and we look forward to providing great content for you for all of Bills Mafia.
awesome. Follow those champions; they are for real, Bills Mafia, and they're worth it for sure. And so I'm back also in at Buffalo Rumblings, writing in the writing game again, and had a piece just 3 days ago about the target share, my projections for the Bills pass catchers and how much they will produce this season. Check it out and subscribe to my own channel in YouTube. The Leading the Charge is live here every Friday at 1 p.m. East and every Sunday at, let me remind time in America, because Sunday is for Brazil mainly and International Bills Mafia, but it's 5:30 East every Sunday. So feel free to join me and subscribe, hit that like button, support my work here on my channel and at Buffalo Rumblings. Bills Mafia, thank you so much. See you around, and always go Bills.